Otto Lopez came through with a couple of big-time home runs, and the Marlins salvaged the final game against the Phillies.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I'm a diehard Marlins fan, and I've podcasted about the team for the last 4 seasons. You can find me on X at Jeremiah Geiger 2, and thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And on today's show, we're going to recap the series finale between the Marlins and the Phillies. The Marlins snapped their 5-game losing streak. They avoid the sweep, which would have been their second straight sweep at the hands of a divisional opponent. Earlier in the week, got swept by the Nationals. They were in danger of getting swept by the Phillies, but they avoided that with Sunday's victory. Otto Lopez, we're going to talk about him. How do you view Otto Lopez in the Marlins' long-term plans? I think it's an interesting discussion. Also, a trade proposal. An everyday listener commented on the YouTube channel, which you can always do. If you have a question for the show, feel free. You can tag me on Twitter. You can shoot me a DM. You can comment on YouTube. I go through the comments, and we're going to talk about that. An interesting trade proposal for the Orioles' Adley Rutschman. And then we're going to wrap up today's episode talking about one of the more underrated prospects in the Marlins system that I believe more people should be aware of, and more hype should start getting built up for this player, and that's Kemp Alderman. But let's start with Sunday's game. The Marlins were in danger of getting swept. 5-game losing streak. It's been a rough week of Marlins baseball. You get swept by the Nationals. You drop the first 2 at home to Philadelphia. You have a bullpen game at home on Sunday. The good news for the Fish is you're wearing those gorgeous blue jerseys. Those are my favorite jerseys that the Marlins have in their wardrobe. Just a really clean look. Anytime the Marlins are at home on Sunday, really any weekend series, you're in for a uniform treat. You have the City Connects on Saturday, and then you have the blue jerseys on Sunday. So for all the complaints that Marlins fans have about the on-field product, hey, at least they look good during a weekend series at Lone Depot. But let's get into this game. Really, the game was won in the first inning. Otto Lopez with a big 3-run homer. It was a 4 spot for the Marlins, and that's really all they needed. They would go on to tack one more run in the 7th, courtesy of Otto Lopez, and that was a big insurance run because the Phillies ended up scoring 1 in the top of the 9th off of Lake Bacher. The final score was 5-4. But it was finally good to see the Marlins get out to a quick start and do so via the long ball. Otto Lopez 1 homer across his last 44 games, I believe it was. So for him to have a multi-home run game was really great, and he propelled this team to victory. A 3-hit game, 4 RBIs. Now, the bullpen, it was a bullpen game. And I find this interesting because it was Adam Mazur's turn in the rotation. Sunday was supposed to be an Adam Mazur start. The team went in a different direction. They felt like they wanted to either skip Mazur's turn in the rotation. They felt that they had a better opportunity to win with the bullpen. I find that interesting as to why they did that. But it was Tyler Phillips who was the opener for the Fish. He goes 2 2/3, just 1 run on 1 hit, 1 walk. He struck out 3. On the season, his ERA is a 3.16. I'm telling you, Tyler Phillips is one of my guys I have circled on the Marlins roster to contribute to this team in a meaningful way heading into next season. We have a few weeks left of this season, and anytime he pitches, it's must-watch baseball. There's a clip of him circulating around Twitter where he's just cussing at the pitch com. He's frustrated at the pitch com. He's got his hat on. He had some issues with it, and he's just not having it. He's pretty frustrated. I mean, the dude comes running out of the pen, out of the bullpen, slapping himself in the face. He's an absolute maniac on the mound. So it was good to see him have a successful start, if you will, against the Phillies, although it's more classified as an opener. Definitely wasn't the expected to go the full 5-6 innings that you typically see from a starting pitcher. He was an opener, but it's fine. The Marlins and Clayton McCullough trusted him enough to pitch the majority of this game. Following him was Cade Gibson, who was impressive. 2 1/3, no runs, just 2 hits. He struck out 1. Then Fauche's had an up and down year, hasn't he? Calvin Fauché, just somebody who, on the season has an ERA of 3.48. So not terrible. It's not like I'm going to classify him into the George Soriano tier of pitchers, but somebody that I don't feel confident about anytime he's on the mound. You never know what's going to happen. And heading into next season with the Marlins bullpen depth that they have and the competitions that they're going to have in spring training, I think Calvin Fauché is an interesting piece of this puzzle. Where will he fit in moving forward? It's going to be an important last few weeks for him as he's going to try to audition to stay on this roster and not get phased out of a bullpen role, of a bullpen spot in high leverage situations. Ultimately, I think he is going to be on the Marlins in 2026, but there's a case to be had if he doesn't perform well the rest of this season, that they could move on from him in the offseason. You never know. It's just speculation. All in all, the Marlins threw 6 pitchers in Sunday's game. Michael Peterson pitched 2 1/3. Ronnie Enriquez, an inning and a third. He struck out a couple, didn't allow a run. And then Lake Bacher had a stressful 9th inning, but he ultimately got the save. Bacher stranded the tying run on third base. There were runners on the corners with 2 outs. He got Bryce Harper to roll over a ground ball to second and end the game. Marlins get the win. They avoid the sweep. I think that's huge for the Fish. You just don't like getting swept. It's an empty feeling if you're the Fish. It's for the fan base, yeah, you're not going to the playoffs, but you still want to pick up these wins. It matters to the clubhouse. So good for the Fish finding a way to get it done. It often feels like this team, they've been losing a lot of series since that deadline, since the first series after the trade deadline. And, once you swept the Yankees, it's kind of been downhill since. And they always seem to win at least one game, avoid getting swept. But you lose 2 out of 3 every series, you're falling a game under 500 or a game further under 500. And now the Marlins are sitting here at 66 and 77. So it's going to take a real gut check and an increased level of play for the Marlins to get to 75 wins. And I think if you had told me at the beginning of this season that the Marlins could get to 75 wins, that there was a possibility for that, I would have taken that because that's tangible signs of improvement. One of the players, I talked about him earlier and preluded to, was Otto Lopez, who had a couple of home runs in Sunday's game, was an instrumental part of that particular win. But now I want to look at the bigger picture when it comes to Otto. Where does he factor in to the Marlins' plans? It's been an up and down season for Otto, and we're going to talk about him more in depth right after this. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all in one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, then Monarch's for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money. You don't have to worry about any complicated spreadsheets or have a huge financial background. It's super easy. You can identify that you're not saving as much as you thought, and who wouldn't want to save more money? We all like money around here, so Monarch can help you save. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. I appreciate all the everyday listeners who tune into Locked On Marlins daily and just make this part of your routine. Over 2,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Let's keep it going as we just got a few more weeks left of this season. Season's really flown by. I remember the opening day series against the Pirates feels like yesterday. And now here I am, got a completely different studio look. I'm in college now, out of the military. A lot has changed in my life, and I'm sure your life, and baseball has been the constant over these last few months. Otto Lopez has been the everyday second baseman / shortstop for the Marlins over the last couple of years. Waiver wire find from the Marlins, from the Giants. The Giants let him go, and I think that was a mistake because he's turned out to be a pretty decent ball player. A season ago, in 434 plate appearances, he hit 270, 6 homers. He stole 20 bags and slugged 377 and played an elite second base, one of the best defenders in terms of outs above average at second. Now, of course, coming into 2025, he was penciled as the everyday second baseman for the Marlins. Xavier Edwards was at short. Otto was at second. The Marlins, though, made a switch. They made a positional switch, and they had to. X is and was not a major league quality shortstop. It just is what it is. He's not cut out defensively for that position. He's a good defensive second baseman, but just not a good defensive shortstop. So the Marlins swapped Otto and X, and now Otto's the shortstop, and X is the second baseman. That's great. I wanted that to happen, and honestly, it had to happen. How has Otto's hitting been? Well, it's taken a step backwards if you look at batting average points. He's hitting 248 on the season, but you look at the on-base percentage, pretty much the same, 315, 313 a year ago. Slugging, 376, 377 a year ago. Stolen bases, he's got 12 stolen bases, so a little bit of a step back in the speed department. He's not stealing as much or stealing as successfully as much from a season ago. But what I really want to emphasize here are two things. Number one, his defense hasn't taken any steps back. He's been just as good as he was last year defensively, if not better. He's in the 97th percentile in outs above average when it comes to his glove with 10, and that's one aspect of his game that's never going to change is that Gold Glove caliber defense, which I honestly believe Otto can be a Gold Glove defender at shortstop. But the biggest storyline for Lopez this year has been the power. And I'm tying this into today's game, Sunday's game, in which he hit 2 homers. He was essentially the entirety of the Marlins offense. He now has 14 bombs on the year. That's well above his previous season in which he just hit 6. So there's a legitimate chance Otto's going to finish in that 15 to 20 home run range. And you look at the quality of glove he has, the power that he's showing. Otto's a really fascinating player. Now, would I want to see him be a little bit more consistent? Absolutely. The average, I felt like he was more of a 270 hitter. He hasn't been that in 2025. But you look at the expected batting average, 83rd percentile. So he's getting unlucky to a degree. His expecting batting average is 280. So you factor a few hard hit balls that don't go his way, that batting average is going to naturally climb up. But you have that power there to give you a pretty safe floor as an offensive piece for the Fish, albeit somebody who is prone to cold spells at time. Like I said, his 2 home run game today, that was preceded by a streak of 44 games with just 1 home run. So he can get a little bit cold at times. But the big question for me when it comes to Otto, now that I've laid out this kind of framework for him and his profile as a baseball player, is how do the Marlins view him? Do they view him as a solid player who's just a stopgap, who's just here until the next elite shortstop prospect comes up through the system, whether that's a Starlin Caba, who's a few years away and there's some questions with him offensively, or is Otto the guy? Is Otto somebody that you consider extending? Do you make a trade for a major league ready shortstop? And I think the dynamic has changed now that he's moved from second to short, because the premium position in baseball is shortstop. Since a young age, all the best athletes play shortstop. You see the best players in Major League Baseball, the Bobby Witt Juniors of the league. He's a shortstop. It's a tough position to play. You're the captain of the infield. There's a lot of pressure on you. And when you have a great shortstop, you essentially solidify the biggest piece in your infield that there is. Do the Marlins have their guy in Otto Lopez? I think it's a nuanced topic. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer yet. I love what I've seen from him in the power. I love that his glove is still elite. Now, is there room to grow offensively? Sure. He's a sub 700 OPS guy. He's not perfect offensively. I'm not going to put him remotely close to the same tier as the Bobby Witt Juniors or the Trey Turners of the world. However, for the Marlins at the position that they're in, a possible 70+ win team as we're heading down the final stretch here, I think Lopez is penciled in as the Marlins starting shortstop in 2026 and possibly beyond, until you find a reason to move off of him. And I think there's only one reason that you can, and that is somebody comes up through the minor league system that just outplays Otto Lopez and has a higher ceiling than him. Until that happens, then Lopez is your guy. Or you sign a marquee free agent to a big contract and he's your star shortstop. Or you make a trade for a stud shortstop. In both those scenarios, they're just not going to happen. The Marlins aren't going to do that. They're not when they have a player with a relatively safe floor like an Otto Lopez. I just don't see a scenario in which the Marlins go out of their way to replace Lopez with a current Major League Baseball player. And if you think they should, if you think they will, then comment below. But Lopez is a 3-WAR player. That's not bad at all. So I'm looking at the Marlins farm system. Who do they really got? Iva Arquette. When does he come up? He's a shortstop out of college. His bat is advanced. He's currently in high A, but in high A Beloit. but I don't think they're going to rush him up to the majors because there's no need to rush him up to the majors if Otto is playing decent. Starlin Caba is still years away from making his debut. Plus, going back to Iva Arquette really quickly, I don't think Arquette's going to stick at short. I think he's going to end up at third base at some point in his career. Nonetheless, Lopez is a good player who there's value for, and the Marlins have seen that this season. There is value. There's room to get better. Remember, last year was his rookie season. He's a second-year player in the highest level of professional baseball in the world. So, although things aren't perfect, I still think the Marlins have a good foundational piece, at least for the next couple of years. And this is a decision that they don't have to make now, and they should feel no pressure of making. He's a good player. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about a potential trade for the Orioles' Adley Rutschman. I got an everyday listener who commented on a YouTube video, and a reminder, you can always do the same, and I will talk about whatever topics you have to discuss. But should the Marlins trade for Adley Rutschman? And how about this Kemp Alderman guy? One of the Marlins' most underrated prospects, I think, in their entire system. I'm going to discuss this coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by Zippix Toothpicks. Whether you're looking for nicotine satisfaction or an energy boost, Zippix has you covered with their nicotine and caffeine-infused toothpicks. For nicotine users, Zippix provides a discreet way to satisfy cravings and the hand-to-mouth habit without vaping or smoking. Zippix can be a helpful tool as you work to reduce your dependence on vaping. Available in 6 great flavors with 2 milligram and 3 milligram nicotine options. And if you need energy without the crash, their caffeine toothpicks are a game changer. They sent me a box, and one of the flavors I received is the cinnamon spearmint flavored toothpicks. So if you're interested in getting some of these caffeine toothpicks, Zippix, go to zippixtoothpicks.com. Use code LOCKEDON for 10% off your first order. You must be 21 or older to order. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. That's zippixtoothpicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. Zip more, smoke less with Zippix toothpicks. A reminder, you can find Locked On Marlins on all the major podcast platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. But we're on Spotify, Apple, you name it. You can listen to the show wherever you are. I got a YouTube comment that I'm going to read from an everyday listener. Lexis Calderon said, "Hey, Jeremiah, I've mentioned it before, but what do you think about a trade for Adley Rutschman this offseason? I see they're open to trading him, and I really think we have a shot at him. Sandy will be traded, so why not Sandy, Adam Major for Adley? If they want another prospect, then I don't know, but Sandy and Major for Adley." And Lexis, I appreciate the comment as always. Interacting with the Locked On Marlins community is what makes hosting the show so great. So appreciate the comment. And now to answer your question, I don't think it makes sense for the Marlins to trade for Adley. I know there's the possibility this offseason because Samuel Basallo just got extended and Adley's had a down season, so to speak. He's dealt with a couple of injuries. He hasn't been as great as, the hope is for him offensively. So if he is available this offseason, I'm sure the Orioles will get plenty of calls, but I don't want to see the Marlins spend what it's going to take to go get him. And the number one reason for that is Joe Mack. Joe Mack's in AAA, and defensively, he's ready. He's ready for the major leagues. I think he's ready right now, including his bat. I think he's offensively ready to make his debut. And it's not looking like he's going to make his major league debut this season, but in 2026, if I was a betting man, I would bet a lot of money that you're going to see Joe Mack in a Marlins uniform. Joe Mack should be given every opportunity to be the number one Marlins catcher and be the catcher for the foreseeable future. Be the next JT Realmuto. Adley Rutschman, Number one, the price tag for him is going to be expensive. You said Sandy Alcantara and Adam Major. I wouldn't trade Sandy for Adley Rutschman in a 1-for-1 swap. And that's just me. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know the viewpoint in the baseball community on the value of Sandy right now and the value of Adley Rutschman, but I wouldn't do it, let alone Sandy and Major, although I view Major as more of a back-end starter anyway. I just don't think it makes sense to bring in a catcher when you have a catcher right now who you have super high hopes for. The hope is that Joe Mack is your next JT Realmuto. I know the Marlins keep running Augustin Ramirez out there defensively. I see it. I see the struggles that he has. And they keep saying, we're going to give him opportunities. We want him to be a catcher. That's obvious. That's where the value is for him. But inevitably, at some point, you're going to have to make the switch, especially with Joe Mack coming up. Unless you want Augustine to be a bad defensive backup catcher and then DH the rest of the time, it doesn't make much sense to bring in a third catcher. It was already strange enough earlier in the year when the Marlins had Nick Fortes, Liam Hicks, and Augustin Ramirez, and they were splitting reps between all three of them. That was already a strange situation. And now technically, if you look at it, they still have three catchers on the roster because they called up Brian Navarreto. Great story, by the way. Hit his first major league home run over this past weekend. But I don't like having three catchers on the 26-man roster. And then even if you keep just two, Joe Mack and Rutschman, that means you would have Augustine full-time DH or have to learn first base. So it gets a little bit messy in terms of playing time, I think, and it's not worth the price tag. For me, I don't think it's a good fit. Kemp Alderman is one of the Marlins' most underrated prospects, in my opinion. And I think it's time to give him a segment on this show. I'm going to start by throwing this out there. He's not a prospect that was acquired by Peter Bendix. He's not a prospect that was drafted in last year's draft by Peter Bendix. He is from the old front office. DJ Svilick, Kim Eng, that whole group of front office individuals. Kemp Alderman was one of their draft picks, the same draft class as Thomas White, as Noble Meyer. Kemp was drafted in the second round at pick number 47. Started off his career slow. You know, in 2023, hit 205. In 2024, he went from rookie ball to AA, just a cup of coffee in AA. And overall, he was okay. He hit 242, had 8 bombs. But that raw power that was so tantalizing to scouts entering the 2023 draft, it really hadn't shown up. Just 8 home runs across 289 at-bats a season ago. This is the season in which he's really put it all together. He has a 20-20 season, 20 home runs on the year with 20 stolen bases. You love to see the speed factored in when it's already an elite raw power hitter. So his raw power is probably the best in the entire organization. And I don't even say that lightly. I'm going to read you this scouting report from ESPN back in 2023. His exit velocities are so high that they broke the formula I used to translate them to the 80-20 scale. It gave him 85 grade in-game power. And now, of course, that's coming out of college, in which you use metal bats. But Alderman just got called up to AAA. He was having a great season in AA. And in 8 AAA games for the Jumbo Shrimp, he has 5 homers already. He's 9 for 28. That's a 321 clip with 5 bombs, a double, and 10 RBIs. And you look at the StatCast metrics because you don't have the advanced metrics in AA. So when a prospect goes from AA to AAA, it's always exciting. You look at these exit velocities, it's off the charts. 90th exit velocity percentile, 108.2. That's his 90th percentile. His max EV, 114.4 miles an hour. You go back and you watch that clip. The home run he hit at 114.4 miles an hour. It's a laser to dead center field. I mean, the ball, his swing is so powerful. The ball just flies off his bat. There's another home run he had a little bit ago in which the pitcher throws it high and over the plate, but it's at just about his armpits. And Alderman just rips it the opposite way for a homer to right field. A high pitch that probably would have been called a ball. Alderman hits it out of the park the opposite way. 20 home run power, 20 stolen bases in the minors. He's in AAA now. I assume he will start off the season in 2026 with the Jumbo Shrimp, but he's somebody that's knocking at the door of the major leagues and somebody that you shouldn't discount the Marlins having plans for. It's all about production. It's all about tools, production, who is going to be the best option to carry you forward. You look at the Marlins outfield depth. Kyle Stowers and Jacob Marcy are locked in. No pun intended, locked on, locked in, but they're locked into starting spots. That third outfield spot, I think, is kind of up for grabs. Dane Myers hasn't had a good season for a while now. He's struggling. He's been on the injured list. Besides him, Griffin Conine's been injured all season long. He's in rehab. He's going to get the last couple of weeks to make a statement, but I'm not confident in Griffin Conine just going out and playing 140 games, 130 games next year. So Kemp Alderman, somebody to watch for to make his major league debut and see if that power and that speed combination can play at the big league level, because I'm telling you, nobody hits the ball as hard as that guy does. Very underrated prospect, elite power. Can't wait to see what he does. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Marlins. I appreciate you guys tuning into the show. Until next time, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.